Hey folks, it's Jang here from ultimaterc.com with my comparative final thoughts on these four rally cars. Cars from big names in the larger than 1/10 scale rally kind of zone of sizes that are out currently. This video is only going to talk about these four, no others. There are other rally cars out there. There are other rally cars that I have run, both official ones from factories as well as custom conversions. That's all well and good. There are other things in other sizes, other scales, other ways of getting rally car RC done. This video is only going to talk about these four, and I'm not going to think about anything else in this one. I know a lot of folks would like to see all four of these cars driven at the same time in the exact same situations. That's just not going to happen. There are a number of very valid reasons why that is simply not practical. So that I don't waste your time in this video, I went ahead and explained that in the video description. So if you have any questions about that, go ahead and see the video description. But you already do have the ability to see each and every one of these piloted by the same driver, the same person with the same level of skill, driving in the same places also, almost exclusively in the same places for all of them. All those videos are already done. Raw driving videos, minimal editing, that's all up on my channel. So if you want to see those, check those out. They're already up there. I've also done my individual reviews for each and every one of these vehicles. So if you have questions about any one of these in particular, you want to see what's under the hood, you want to take closer looks at them, you want to hear my individual thoughts on each one specifically by itself in its own little world, check out my full reviews. That's not what this video is about. This is just a summary of my thoughts on how these stack up against each other. They're all on the market right now. They're all within supposedly the same size range. They're called 1/8 scale or thereabouts. So speaking of scale, let me go ahead and start off with size. There is a range of sizes, and you can see it a little bit from where you are right now inside of the camera. You can see a little bit in the height. You can see a little bit in the width. There's a range from small to large. It's actually the little ones here, the big ones here. I did a video that has no talking behind it, that just shows these from various angles lined up against each other, so you can see exactly what the differences are in size. The smallest out of all of these, the HPI WR8, and I got the WR8 Flux Ken Block Gymkhana edition is the specific one that I tested. They've got a couple other versions of this out there, or a few other versions I think, both in nitro and in electric. This is a true 1/8 scale car. If you compare this to the size of the actual car that it is based on, it is truly 1/8 scale, which makes it really funny when you look at the next one, which is much larger, from Traxxas. They call this a 1/10 scale. It's not. Clearly significantly larger than the truly 1/8 scale HPI WR8. They call it a 1/10 scale because it's based on the /4x4 platform or chassis platform, which was considered to be 1/10 scale. It's not quite 1/10 scale either, but relatively close. But you put this bigger body on it, it changes the scale altogether. And then you come over to here, and this, the Thunder Tiger ER-4, this is based on a 1/8 scale RC buggy. So the chassis that is here is actually what we normally call 1/8 scale in RC. But when you put this car body on it with those dimensions, you get something that's between 1/7.5 scale or something like that, and 1/6 point something-th scale, depending upon which dimensions that you measure. So a wide range of sizes here. The most interesting thing is that the most expensive one out of all of these is the smallest in physical size. So the HPI is the most expensive here. The cheapest one is actually this guy right here, the Kyosho DRX, and this is a DRX VE. It's available with some different bodies. They have a number of different clear bodies, option bodies out there also. So size, you're looking at a wide range. Prices range, they're within about 80 bucks of each other. I think this one you can get for about 400 even, maybe a little bit less. This one you can get retailing for about 480. Although if you order on Tower, you get to take advantage of free shipping and get some coupons also. You can get this one on AMA, you get some coupons also to bring the overall prices down. So that's what we're looking at in terms of sizes and prices. So you get a little bit of an idea of value, quantity for your money, quantity by itself. Something that's very controversial that folks in the camp of one or the other of these vehicles often tend to fall back on is saying that one or another is based on a certain type of vehicle platform and the others aren't. So let's say if I drive the Kyosho DRX VE on an off-road track, folks who are fans of the DRX VE say that I'm being unfair to it by driving it in conditions which it's not meant for, not true to scale rally car size of jumps and type of terrain. And comparatively, if I drive this guy, the Traxxas rally car on a surface that's relatively smooth and low, they say that's not really what it's meant for because it's based on a short course track. Well, let me get past all of that because all of that is pretty much hogwash. These are all based on off-road vehicle platforms. This right here is based on the EB-4 1/8 scale buggy. This right here is based on the DBX, which is a 1/10 to 1/9 scale off-road buggy. This right here is based on the Slash 4x4 platform, which is, I mean, if you just put a different body on it, it becomes essentially a 1/8 scale buggy, but it's designed for 2S use. This guy over here, the HPI WR8 VE, is based on HPI's Bullet series of vehicles, which originally there's a Bullet ST, there's a Bullet MT. They are 1/10 scale, smaller 1/10 scale stadium and monster trucks. So these are all based on off-road vehicles. If you look at their platforms themselves, there isn't any one of these that is more of a true rally car in any way, shape, or form, other than the tires. The tires, the scale of the tires does vary a little bit. So speaking of scale again, and tires is actually a good segue, I want to look at which of these looks the most scale, and I'll just cut to the chase very quickly on that. This is the most scale looking one by far. There's no comparison. Kyosho did the very best job of capturing the lines of the real cars, and like I said, they do have different bodies there that are available to fit onto this chassis. The proportions are pretty good. They're not exact, but they're as good as you can ask for. They also did pretty good with the wheels and tires, getting those to be pretty fair looking and still working, still fitting over the hubs. And incidentally, this one, in terms of scale driving experience, is also, if not the best, it's one of the best. The other one that's in consideration there, that's high up on the list, is this guy. And this is actually a pretty good scale representation of the car that it's based on. And they do have more rally-specific bodies that are available for this, as well as more rally-specific wheels and tires. This one here just happens to be the Ken Block Gymkhana 5 branded version. But if you get one of the WRC versions, or the rally versions, you get a much more scale look. Just not quite as good looking as the Kyosho itself. So, in terms of driving experience, this is the big one. Which one drives the best out of all of them, or which ones drive the best under which conditions? Because realistically, RC rally is a very small thing in the overall RC world. Scale rally is not something that's done very frequently. There are very, 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 very few actual scale style rally tracks in the world, period. Most of them are in people's backyards even. There are competitive events that are run in rally, but most people in RC who would be buying any of these vehicles will be driving them under situations that are not 100% true to the scale of the size of the vehicle when you start looking at the size of the rocks and the size of the jumps and just the general conditions that they'll be driving in. And that's why I drove all of these under the same conditions, including conditions that are not scale, but that are very common for RC users. So for scale style driving experience, I already mentioned that it's definitely coming down to these two, between the Kyosho and the HPI. If I could only have one of these and had a very limited budget of what I could spend, and assuming, I mean, this one right here is the tarmac specific. It's an on-road specific one. It comes with on-road specific wheels and tires, but you could easily substitute this out for the slightly cheaper, actually, one of the WRC versions to get the rally tires and the rally look. Between these two, it's a very, very, very close race for me for scale style driving, where you're doing very little, very, very little jumping, and most of your driving is on flat surfaces. I think if I could only pick one of these for driving on flat surfaces, I would probably go with the DRX out of the two, for the simple fact that it is larger. Mostly it has a longer wheel base, and that makes a big difference in real world driving scenarios, real RC driving scenarios, because bigger is better in a sense, because the bigger the vehicle, the larger the tires especially, and the longer the wheelbase, the more slowly it reacts, and the easier it is to keep it controlled, and to keep it controlled through drifts especially. So I think that the Kyosho gets the slight nod from me for the most scale style driving experiences. On the other hand, for real world driving experiences, actual stuff that most RC users, at least in the United States, where I'm most familiar with people's habits, you have to look at the Traxxas. Unfortunately, it does not have a very scale look to it. I'd say it's the least scale looking of all of the vehicles, just by virtue of the wheel and tire dimensions. And you've got these huge fender cutouts in the rear, and pretty high profile looking tires. They're actually low profile. They're actually they're lower in profile than most 1/8 scale buggy tires, but they're based on short course, the short course standard for wheels, which gives them the extra tall looking sidewall on the outside just for looks. But having those tires that are pretty large, and they do have some thickness to them to actually pick up surface imperfections and actually neutralize them to some extent, and also having quite a lot of unrealistically wide or tall suspension travel, gives it a huge advantage over all of the rest right here. For going over rough terrain, I mean, I was able to drive this thing immediately out of the box over terrain that's much rougher than any of these others could even think of, just by virtue of that suspension travel that's right there, plus the size of the wheels. They're also very wide. The tires are very wide. So if I could only have one vehicle period, one RC at all, no other RCs in the world, and I had to choose one of these, I think I would probably choose the Traxxas personally, and it has nothing to do with any bias towards Traxxas whatsoever. It is simply for the fact that you can do the most with this. You can drive it on road pretty decently. It's respectable on road, even without any changes. You can drive it on a scale style surface, and you can drive it over a crazy series of jumps. You could put it onto a skate park and take it over big jumps. You can take it around a 1/8 scale off-road track that's made for 1/8 scale buggies, and especially if you put new tires on it, especially if you change out the crappy rear springs for change out the progressive rear springs for something linear and something normal, you can just take this anywhere. So this one gets the nod from me for purposes of doing anything whatsoever. If you want scale the most scale driving experience, this is not the one for you, I think. It has too much traction, and it's too stable, really, for scale. It's too good for scale driving, to be honest with you. Something like this or like this has the more scale size wheels and tires, which gives you less traction and actually gives you an experience that is closer to appropriate. I haven't said anything about the Thunder Tiger as far as its performance is concerned because, well, frankly, it did terrible. It has a ton of potential being based on a 1/8 scale buggy, and I was really looking forward to this one doing really well, at least with a change of tires. You know, the stock tires are but I was expecting to be able to just throw on some 8th scale wheels and tires standard, because they use the 17mm hubs, and unfortunately they just don't fit due to the lines of the body. You have to cut out a tremendous amount of Lexan to fit 8th scale buggy wheels and tires. So this one ended up being just terrible all around. It was okay on road, not too bad on road, but even going over small stuff up to going over big jumps, the wheels and tires held it back tremendously. Don't have the option of changing those out without getting an entirely new aftermarket body that has fenders that are more generous, that are taller, and as it is right now, the wheels and tires, you're pretty much stuck with the proprietary small size that's on there right now. So for driving on road, I think that this would end up being pretty good. And also, I think you get the most car for your money with this one. It's right in the middle of the price range of these, but this being a 1/8 scale buggy, you get the big motor, get the ability to run a 4S battery, and you should be able to do big stuff with it as far as driving ability. But when the rubber, what little hard rubber there is, hit the road, this one just didn't work out. So honestly, this one is just completely out of contention. It really comes down to just 3 guys. So far I've said this one probably the best for scale, this one probably the best for everything, but this one is also the best to me for another reason. I've never had an RC that was this close to scale looking, that was so capable over so many different types of terrain. It drives just fine on road. It drives just fine in scale driving situations. Even with the stock tires, the version that I got has these tarmac or on-road specific tires, and even with those, they're just so soft that they get good traction, and it's pretty consistent without any tuning whatsoever. This one does great. It even goes over off-road tracks, 10th scale and 1/8 scale tracks with the big jumps and everything. It's not the most elegant thing. It doesn't drive doesn't jump or especially land as well as a full-on off-road vehicle with much larger wheels and tires, but it does pretty well, and you can drive this thing around with off-road vehicles and keep up with a lot of them. You do need more power with this. It has great power, has great speed. Overall, as an overall effort to make a rally car that is exciting and usable for many different people, for many different terrain types, but that still stays really, really close to the scale and style of a proper modern hot hatch rally car. This one gets much love from me, the HPI WR8 Flux. Just check out my raw driving videos of those. I did one video more recently also where I drove this on 6 different surfaces. I drove it on road track, I drove it on gravel, I drove it on a little bashing park, I drove it on a 10th scale track, I drove it on an 8th scale track, and I think, was that 6? I don't know, I'm not even counting, but it doesn't matter. Drove it on a bunch of things just within one single battery, and it did great on all of them. So overall, for real world driving, it comes down to these two. This one here impressed me the most out of the box by far, and especially for its scale. Only thing I worry about this one, or with this one, is body availability. I'm hoping that they'll come out with more different body styles that fit this kind of unique size that this one presents, that's realistically just a little bit larger than a traditional 1/10 scale sedan, so-called 1/10 scale, actually more like 1/11 scale sedan, 190 millimeter, 200 millimeter touring cars. But just much love from me for this one. This guy, I really don't like the look of it, but I'm very much against the arguments that say, well, this is just a short course truck, so it drives like a short course truck. Well, no, this is just a stadium truck or a monster truck. This is just a buggy or a truggy. This is just a 1/8 scale buggy. To single this one out and call it a short course truck, and to not call this one a buggy or truggy, to not call this one a buggy, to not call this one a truck or monster truck, is just ridiculous to me. This one only loses because of its looks. I think that the high profile looking tires hurt it, and also the body. I actually like the body style of it, the shape and everything, but the lack of the clear windows and kind of limited detailing on there, plus the extra large fender cutouts and the non-realistic wheels and tires really pull it back for true rally car enthusiasts. Again, if you're looking for scale, it's definitely between these two. And just because this one is, well, this one's cheaper and larger than this one, I think that this one gets the win out of those. But I think that pretty much covers it for my thoughts on these. Again, I've done the individual reviews on each of these, so if you want to see anything specific about them, you have any questions about any of them, you want to see them with the bodies off, you want to see how this is an off-road vehicle, this is an off-road vehicle, this is an off-road vehicle, this is no more of an off-road vehicle than any of those are. These two are no more of rally cars than these are. This is no more of an on-road car than this is, or this is. Possibly a little bit more than this, just by virtue of the wheels and tires though. You can see the body off photos, you can see for yourself exactly what's under there when looking at the first parts of my individual reviews. But overall, summing it up one last time, this guy, terrible. This guy, good for scale driving, not good for real world, most common stuff like jumps and big bumps, open fields with rocks and stuff. This one best for overall. You can treat it like a regular off-road rally car, or excuse me, a regular off-road RC car in true Traxxas style. It makes for a good basher. This one right here, for me, gets the most love as a rally car that looks kind of scale, looks very scale actually, but still manages somehow through good tire choice, good tire compound, and good balance front to rear, good suspension setup out of the box, manages to handle a lot of real world driving situations, including thicker gravel, including jumps that are not scale, without any change, and still just as durable as any of them are. That's just my personal feelings. Now, different people will have different thoughts. Different people will connect better with one or another vehicle. And of course, just what you're doing, what you want to do with each of these is going to have a major impact on which would be best for you personally, for your individual needs and desires. But those are my thoughts. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that was educational for you. Again, it's just one person's opinion, but based on a whole lot of driving and a whole lot of experience with all of these. So take care, and I'll be talking to you again soon.